Medical terminology. As you work your way through your modules here at Ross, we will be doing medical terminology every module. You will hear some version of an intro to medical terminology every mod. So you're going to hear this material 5 times. If you are in your 4th or 5th mod, it may be very easy for you to think, oh, I can skip this. I don't need to worry about these basics. But I do find that the more you hear it, first of all, the more it's going to stick, but also you might hear something different each time. Okay, so if this is your first mod, this could be a lot of information, and you'll retain a portion of it, and you'll work your way through the mod. And but when you hear it for the second and third time, you're going to go, oh, there's a key that just didn't stick last time. There's something that could have been really helpful last time, because you might hear it in a different way each module depending on how your instructor presents it. So I'm going to go through the presentation I've created, but you'll want to make sure that you're working your way through chapter 1 in your medical terminology, which is where all these basics are coming from that I'm about to cover. I'm not covering it from your textbook. You'll need to do your textbook. Okay. I put together the highlights of what I want to talk about. So there are 3 parts of a medical term: a prefix, a suffix, and a word root. So I'm going to go through those one at a time. Prefixes, they're found at the beginning of the word. And not all words have a prefix. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. A word cannot have more than one prefix. However, I've had students, when they're trying to break down a medical term, try to give it 2 prefixes, and that can never, ever, ever happen. So just know that. Prefixes, if there is one, indicate a location, a number, a quantity, which kind of are the same thing, or the absence of something. For example, the term aphakia. And it's okay that you're like, I've never heard of that word. That means absence. The A at the beginning means without. Phakia is a lens in your eye. So without a lens is what this word means. Okay. I could use the word bilateral or quadriparesis. Bi means 2, just like a bicycle has 2 wheels. Bi means 2, so bilateral means 2 sides, referring to the left and the right side of the body. Quad is a 4. Think of like a quad you might ride for fun. A quad has 4 wheels. Okay, so quadriparesis would be a paralysis of all 4 limbs, arms and legs. Okay, and then location, the 3 that I tell students to memorize first, these are like top memorization, is endo, epi, and peri. These are used in your anatomy quite frequently. Endo means within, epi means upon, peri means around. So if I say the pericardium, we're referring to around the heart. Endocardium is within the heart. So by memorizing those 3 prefixes for location, it really helps you with your anatomy really quickly. You'll use them frequently, and you will be thankful that you memorized them early on in your program. Okay, so those are some samples of how prefixes are used. Okay. You'll know it's a prefix when you're looking at it because it will have this hyphen at the end of it, and that is telling you that something has to be hooked after. We're going to get rid of that hyphen and something else has to be added. So you know something needs to go there. So you know that you're looking at something that would be the beginning of the word. Okay. Page 16 in your medical terminology book has a whole list of prefixes. This is a quick snapshot. This is not the full list from page 16. So it tells you that aphakia that I just was using as an example, there's your A. Just like I said, it means without. It also means no and not. The word they are giving as an example is apneic. You might have heard of sleep apnea that someone has. Apneic means breathing. So sleep apnea means without breath. Okay. So that's apneic means the same thing. Then we have an also means no and without. And ophthalmia means having no eye. You've lost an eye. Okay. Any of you Walking Dead fans? Kid lost an eye. Okay. Anti means forward, in front of, or before. They use the word anteversion. It's anteversion is referring to the positioning of a baby. Okay. Anti with an I means against. So antibacterial, like a hand sanitizer, it might be an antibacterial, or a soap, means against bacteria. Means that it's fighting against bacteria. Okay. So by knowing at a glance what these mean, you can easily decipher a word that is presented to you. It requires you to memorize it. There is no shortcut to MedTerm. You have to just memorize it. There's nothing else you can do. Now, if you can do some word association in your head to help you with that memorization, that's going to be a good key, or just flat out having to memorize it. Constant exposure is what's going to encourage that memorization and that long-term retention. In your Canvas, you have Cerigo. So within your Canvas, you will see all of these kinds of activities listed. These are practices to go along with your textbook of the material from that chapter. As you see your daily lesson plans posted, you will see these activities indicated for you to work on. They are not graded, meaning no one's going to know if you did them or not. But the more you do them, and that you do them more than one time, is going to master your material. The people who do these over and over and over again are going to have better retention of the material. Better retention of the material is going to make your test a better score, and it's going to make your medical coding that much easier, because you're going to understand the words that are being presented that you need to code. So I can't stress it enough that you should be doing this. Now, these activities did not link to Cerigo, but I believe some of the other ones will. I know some of the other ones will once you get into your higher chapters. See, there's all kinds of activities here for chapter 2. Okay. So again, you need to take the initiative and self-motivate and work your way through these, and more than once. Work them till you master them. Okay. Cerigo is a program that you can use on the website, but it also, you can put an app on your phone. And with Cerigo, it's tied to your textbook. It's the same material, and it presents so many terms, 5, 6, 7 of them, and then it asks you a whole bunch of questions about the ones it just taught you. And it keeps track of the ones that you know versus the ones that you struggle with. And then it'll present 5 or 6 more. And then it'll ask you questions on those, and then it'll mix you and ask questions on all 10. And then it'll ask some more and some more. And they're presented in short sessions intended for these to take only 15, 20 minutes at a time. You can work on those while you're on the go. Are you sitting in the line at McDonald's or at the drive-thru at your bank? Rather than pulling out your phone and playing on Facebook or some other social media, or playing some solitaire game or Candy Crush or something, play this instead. Okay. When you're in the car, not driving, someone else is driving, and you're just messing around, killing time, getting to your destination, do this instead. Okay. You're only in school for X amount of weeks. Okay. This isn't the rest of your life that you're going to have your nose in studying. But for this time, we need to use these chunks of time that we all have that we waste time throughout the day. Because I'll hear from students, I don't have time. Well, I had time to play on Facebook for 2 hours today. Not 2 hours in a row, little here, little there, little there. Guess what? You do have time. You just got to rethink your time. Okay. You also can use Quizlet. It's a great free website. You sign up for a free account. There is an app as well, and you can make your own flashcards. And that's great for studying all subjects, anatomy, your insurance, all kinds of things. All right, your suffixes are found at the end of the word term. Suffixes tend to be telling you if it's anatomic, a pathology, which is a disease, a diagnostic, or a treatment. All words must have a suffix. Every single word. Medical terminology word. Okay? And it cannot have more than one. Okay? So when you look at a medical term, remember those suffix has to be there. The prefix, sometimes, sometimes not. Okay? And you'll know you're looking at a suffix when I'm only giving you part of a word because it has the hyphen at the beginning, meaning something has to go at the beginning and you're looking at the end of the word. Ectomy, otomy, centesis, paresis. Okay. These three are all procedures. Ectomy is a removal, like a tonsillectomy, hysterectomy. It's a removal of something. Otomy is to cut into something. Centesis is to use a needle. You insert a needle to withdraw fluid. You might have heard of like an amniocentesis that they might do on a pregnant mama, okay, to get fluid out from baby's womb, I should say, not from the actual baby. And paresis is a disease because that's a paralysis. So when we look at a word, we know, are we looking at a procedure? Are we looking at their diagnosis? Because the suffix will tell us so. Pages 9 through 14 in your chapter 1 of your medical terminology book has several tables of suffixes. There's a lot more suffixes than there are prefixes. And here's just a quick snapshot that I gave you. Graph, meter, scope, tome, tripter, trite. These are all different instruments or machines, which is the table that I copied. Obviously, that's why this table is limited to those kinds of things. So like an electrocardiograph, a thermometer, ophthalmoscope, osteotome, lithotripter, and lithotrite. And you can see the breakdown and the definitions here. So now we did the beginning of the word, which is the prefix, and the end of the word, which is the suffix. Okay. Now we have the middle of the word. Word roots are at the middle when you have a prefix. And then if there is no prefix, of course, the word root is going to start the word. Typically, your word roots indicate a body part. And you're going to see those written here with this /O, cardio, dermato, neuro. And the slash will actually be there. So when you're looking at a word root with that /O, you know it's a word root, not a prefix, not a suffix. They all look different. The /O is called the combining form. Occasionally, rarely, but occasionally, it might be a /I. Okay. So you will see that from time to time, but it is rare, but it does exist. Okay. A word root can have a word can have more than one word root. For example, gastro, duodenal are both word roots, and we put it together to make the word gastroduodenoscopy. Gastro, duodenal, and scopy is a suffix because remember, every word has to have one, so the scopy is your suffix. So gastro is your stomach. Duodenal is the first part of your small intestine. So they're doing a scope to look at your stomach and your intestine. So when they put the scope down your throat, they go to the stomach and then push it a little bit further into the intestines, and that's what that word means. So why do we have that /O? Like, what's the point of this combining vowel? It's written as a slash because I want you to think. I want you to consider, do I need it or not? Sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's not. So how do we know? The difference is, what is your suffix that was attached to the word? If the suffix begins with a vowel, we do not use the combining vowel. If the suffix begins with a consonant, we do use the combining vowel. So your vowels, you learned that back in like 3rd, 4th grade, 2nd grade. A, E, I, O, U. Okay. So if that suffix begins with an A, E, I, O, U, then we don't use the combining vowel. If it begins with or ends with any other, if the suffix begins with a consonant, any of those letters, not A, E, I, O, U, then you do need the combining vowel. So I gave you some words here. So for cardio, we have cardiologist. Logist begins with an L, consonant. Cardiomegaly, consonant. Carditis, vowel. Dermatosis, dermatectomy, both vowels. Rhexis, consonant. Al, oma, vowels. Genic, consonant. So you can see that when we put the word together, sometimes we use that O, sometimes we don't. So what's the point? What is the point of that O? The point is ease of pronunciation. So let's say that O didn't exist. Let's say we never used it. So this word becomes cardiomegaly. It just doesn't flow off your tongue very well. Let's say, okay, let's just always use it. Well, now carditis becomes cardioitis, and it's too hard to work. It's bulky, it's jumbled in your mouth, it just doesn't flow. And that's why we use them versus don't use them. Okay, it helps with the pronunciation. So when you're creating a word and you get to that /O, you then, before you write the O, you go, what's the suffix? What's next? Do I write it or do I not write it? Okay. The /O with your word root is only optional or situational when combining to a suffix. When you're combining a word root to another word root, you never drop the O. Ever. This is a real word down here. Hysteroophorectomy. It means removal of the uterus and ovaries. Oophorectomy starts with a double O. So when you add the hystero, you actually get 3 O's in a row. That is correct. For that particular word, the hyphen is actually part of the spelling, just to help you with pronunciation, because it becomes hysteroophorectomy rather than hysteroophorectomy, where the 3 O's in a row are weird. Gastroenteritis, inflammation of the stomach and intestines. Okay. Enteritis begins with an E, but we don't drop the O because entero is a root word as well. So root to root, keep the O always, no choice. All right, there are a lot of word roots. Okay, this is not a short list. This would be a tremendously long list if I were to give all of them to you at one time, but we don't. They are presented one chapter at a time based on the body system, which means your time here at Ross, you're only going to be dealing with the chapters for the body systems you're doing in that module. So for module 1, it's skin, muscle, and bone. For Module 2, it's heart and respiratory. Module 3, it's digestive and urinary. So you're going to learn these chapters a few at a time. So each mod, you will get new root words that are going to be new to everybody, specific to that module. Now, from time to time, you get exposed to things earlier than the official module, but that's okay. Some words cross boundaries from chapter to chapter, like gland. Adeno. We have a sweat gland, which is part of the skin. But then you have glands that do hormones, which are part of the endocrine. So some words like adeno are going to cross modules. So when I give you a whole word, how do you decode it? And when we use the word decode, we are referring to a word that can be separated into prefix, suffix, and word root. Okay? When I teach MedTerm, I use the word slashable, because if I were to write this on the board, I would ask you, where do I put my slashes? Which means, what's the prefix? What's the word root? What's the suffix? Let's put some slashes in there. So if I write 10 words on the board and I have you get out a piece of paper and I have you write down the 10 words on your paper, the first thing we do is put in our slashes. Then we define each word part. Poly, to the beginning of the word, it's a prefix, it means many. Myo is a word root meaning muscle. Algia is a suffix meaning pain. Now notice this O isn't in the word polymyalgia because algia began with a vowel. But when I write it as a word root, I throw the /O on there because that's how you're going to memorize them. So I put it there on this slide. So now we know what each part means. So how do we put that into a sentence? So if I ask you, what does polymyalgia mean? You are not going to say to me, it's many muscle pain. That sounds ridiculous out of our mouth. To give the definition, you always start with the suffix pain. Then you jump to the prefix many, then to the word root. Okay? So to define the word polymyalgia, we go algia, poly, my, which we come out with pain of many muscles. Okay, still seems a little awkward out of our mouth, but it's a whole lot better than many muscle pain. Okay. Pain of many muscles. So, endocarditis, we start with putting in our slashes. Now, because I left it as a word with slashes, I didn't write the whole word root. Cardio is actually written like this. 2 slashes. It's kind of weird, but you can see that the I and the O get dropped from time to time, depending on your word. Just a little extra, a little preview if you haven't done that mod yet. Okay. So endo is our prefix. Cardio is our word root. Itis is our suffix. Next one. Peri is our word root. Cardio, same thing. Itis, same thing. Cardiomegaly. So I gave us 3 words, all that had cardio. Well, even if this is your first module, even if it's your first day, you probably know that cardio means heart, because we have actually turned the word cardio into an American word, meaning doing some exercise that makes your heart pump. You know, I'm going to go do some cardio at the gym. Okay. Itis means inflammation. Endo means within. Peri means around. So we have the first word is inflammation around the heart, and then inflammation within the heart, and then inflammation around the heart. The next one, megaly, means enlargement. So that means enlargement of the heart or an enlarged heart. Notice on all of them, I started with the suffix, then jumped to the prefix if there was one, and then the word root to give you the definition. The next one, otoscope, and then epigastric. Otoscope is an instrument to view the ear. It's that little lighted instrument that your doctor holds in their hand when they look in your ear. It's got light as well as magnification in it. And then epigastric means pertaining to, upon the stomach. So a lot of times when they use epigastric, they're talking like above the stomach. So like you're having pain in like the center of your belly or right underneath your rib cage. Okay. All right. Chapter 1 in your med term contains your prefixes and suffixes. You're going to need to go through that chapter and on the tables that I already told, the pages I already told you, and identify all your word roots, prefixes and suffixes that you need to start memorizing. If you're in your 3rd, 4th mod, focus on the ones that are still giving you trouble. Okay? You might have mastered many, many of them. You don't need to look at those on a daily basis if you've mastered them. Continue to work on the ones that stump you. For example, the ones that took me a long time to memorize were the double R's. There's one more. Raphi, Rhexis, Rhea, Rajia. They all are spelled RRH. Now, this one's probably the most familiar to you because we all know the word diarrhea. Okay, but there's 3 others that are, and hemorrhage, which is a different version of the Rajia. We know the word hemorrhage. Those are the double R's. So I learned my double R suffixes together because to try and learn them one at a time, I never got them straight. So what I ended up doing, and I learned med term in the day of paper flashcards, I put them all on the same flashcard, and I put the double R words in alphabetical order. So I went Rajia, Raphi, Rhexis, Rhea, Rhexis. Then when I put the definitions on the back, obviously they went in the order that they were in the front. So then when I was taking my test and I was presented with one of these, I'd close my eyes and I would picture the flashcard, because obviously I'm a visual learner, if this works for me, and I would go, Rajia is the first alphabetically on the index card. That means it's the first definition on the back. Boom. Flowing is what that means. Like flowing of blood, flowing of, Rajia, bursting forth. So like hemorrhaging. So I did them together because to try to learn these as 4 separate terms, I never ever could keep them straight. The same with scope and scopy. The same with gram, graph, and graphy. Learn them together because the definitions are similar because these 3 words are related for gram, graph, and graphy. Again, to learn them as separate terms didn't work for me. Now it may work for you and you might not need to do any of these tips, but if my tips work for you, great. Okay, there's a lot of exercises in your textbook along with those Sirigo. Again, no one's going to assign them, no one's going to grade them, no one's going to check that you did them. But how are you going to master the material if you aren't choosing to do these as part of your study process? That's my question. All right, the last thing I want to talk about are terms that are non-decodable, meaning not slashable. You can't put a slash in it and identify a prefix, suffix, and word root. It doesn't work. The word wasn't created in that way. You're going to see them in your textbook. They're going to be in your homework. They're going to be in your class assignments. They're going to be on the test review. We don't put them there for fun for you to not know them. So students will be like, I didn't know that one was going to be on the test. Well, really? Because it was in your homework, it was in your classwork, and we talked about it during the test review. Why did you think we did those things? So pay attention. When one of these words is in any of those kinds of assignments, you might need to memorize that. Again, flashcards. You need to learn these as a whole. Examples of that would be like migraine, asthma, lumbago, bursa. Some of them are named after a physician, like Alzheimer's or Huntington's disease. Yes, there was a Dr. Alzheimer. Yes, there was a Dr. Huntington. Okay. So those are definitely things, you just got to learn these. And the more you're exposed to them, the more it will stick in your long-term memory. So you have to be doing these exercises, these flashcards, using your Cerigo, using the apps, making your own, whatever your process is. I'm not telling you what your process has to be. You just have to find a process that works for you. And if you don't know what works for you, try them. Pick the brains of your classmates. Find out what works for other people and try them. If you're in your first module, and what you do works, keep doing it. If what you're doing didn't work, try something new in your second mod. Try something new in your third mod till you find one that works for you. None of these processes, however, are going to work if you don't work it. You can't just do the Cerigo or go through your flashcards one time. It's constant repetition that is the key. So you've got to be working it. So reach out to your instructors if you need assistance. Set up a time in the classroom with your instructor on campus. Join the Zoom meetings. Okay. Reach out, participate in every activity Ross is offering you, because we are here to reinforce this material to help you with that constant exposure.